Welcome everybody to this is May's monthly webinar from the market-wide half-hourly settlement program and the PPC team who have kindly coordinated it. For those who don't know me on the call, I'm sure that's quite a few people. I'm Lewis Hall. I'm the PMO lead for the LDP as part of the MHHS Programme team. I'm going to be kind of facilitating and leading this session on program management, PMO, and business separation. So if we could just skip on to the agenda, a quick run through of what's in store today. So firstly, a bit of a kind of a welcome and introduction to the PMO from myself. So I'll run through a few slides on kind of the program management structure, an introduction to the PMO team, a bit about our scope in that first 5 minutes. It'll be a real whistle-stop tour. I'll then hand over to my colleagues, Danielle Chowdhury and Noah Thorne. They're going to focus in on one of the key areas of the PMO, which is the management and our digital PMO tool. So we're going to do a bit of a deep dive for 10 minutes into how we're bringing Ray to life, trying to make, I guess, what's perhaps a bit of a laborious, admin-intensive practice typically in program management, a bit more interactive and hopefully bit more innovative. I'm then going to hand over to Fraser Matheson, who's one of our governance leads, and he's going to give a bit of a tour of the governance structure of the program, talk about kind of how decisions are made throughout that. And then Warren Fulton at the end is going to take us through the business separation conflict of interest plan that's in place to ensure that there is no conflicts of interest between kind of the program and Elexon BSC. And then leaving about 15 minutes at the end, we'll do a facilitated Q&A that Smitha has kindly volunteered to just kind of run through. So want to leave as much time for that as possible to get, so you can all kind of get your questions in. Just on the questions. So we've got a Slido going throughout this session. So if you just make a note of that code there, and you can access it either via the Slido app or through slido.com, pop in that code and you can fire your questions in there, and so we'll keep a running total and a running commentary of those, and we'll run through those at the end of the meeting. So brilliant, we'll jump into the first section then. I'm just going to talk very quickly about kind of the structure of the program team and how we are facilitated, because I'm conscious that some of you may not have that view. So at the top of the pyramid on the slide, you'll see Ofgem. They're the program sponsor. Underneath that, you've then got Elexon as the senior responsible owner and ultimately delivering the accountable for delivering this program. And then under that, you've got the lead delivery partner, which is made up of 4 core components, which you'll see on the right-hand side of this slide. So the central program team, or the CPT, which are the kind of the leadership team that manage the day-to-day delivery of the MHHS program on behalf of the LDP. You've then got the PMO team, the engine room, as I like to call it, that effectively drive the delivery of the program, ensure that frameworks are in place, standards are adhered to, and we've got the right tools and templates to be successful. The PPC, who are perhaps probably the team that you'll have most engaged with to date on the program. So they're the ones that are the outward-facing team that ensure that all of you are kind of getting the support you need, that you're ready to proceed as we go through each phase of the program. And then finally, you've got the systems integration team. So they are effectively assurers of the design that we're working on developing at the moment with our Elexon colleagues. They will take overall control of kind of the integration and testing plans, phases, and managing all of that, as well as the management and delivery of the program portal, which we'll touch on a little bit later on, but some of you will have had experience with, and we'll hear a little bit more about, no doubt, throughout the various forums that you're all part of. And then underneath it, critically, sorry, just back on that last slide, you've got obviously yourselves forming all of the program parties that form the working groups, the advisory groups, and fundamentally help this thing move along. So just moving to the next slide then. So one of the things we set out in the program initiation document early on in the project are a set of kind of key approaches, principles, and the methods to delivering those that we wanted to adhere to with regards to this program. Fundamentally, we want to be delivery focused, following best practice, best practice MSP, being design led, and driving delivery with that best practice lens on. We want to be data driven, leveraging kind of analytics and data where we can. So as I mentioned, things like the DPMO, where we focus on perhaps themes, trends, and patterns that if we solve, we help mitigate significant areas of risk of the program. We want to be technology enabled, so the portal will help us do that. A one-stop shop for all your communications, information, documentation, all set in a centralized repository and portal that gives you the best and most seamless customer experience, if you like, when you're navigating it. Proactive, we use the term relentlessly proactive here. And I think this is a key one for the PMO. The thing I keep telling the teams, we want to be on the front foot, driving the program forwards, and not perhaps being a reactive administrative kind of function, which sometimes PMOs can often become and can often be perceived about. We want to be adding the value, driving the progress, and almost identifying the issues and the challenges that may be on the horizon before they materialize. Lean and agile, we want to be doing the right things at the right time, and then quality driven. So we want to make sure that quality is at the forefront of everything that we do, and the decisions that we make, to ensure that transparency is there, and to ensure that it's all evidence based. If we just shift on then, so I think the other thing that's talked about quite a lot in the delivery approach and in the general delivery approach in this program is being design led as opposed to perhaps code led. And so just wanted to, I guess, clarify perhaps what that means. And in this sense, it's ensuring that the design of the system is completed first, ahead of kind of the code changes being delivered. And fundamentally, there are kind of a number of benefits to this that we've kind of outlined on here in terms of saving time. We can move at the right speed to obtain the decisions that we need, and perhaps not being held back by some regulation that then needs to be approved. Moving at a quicker speed allows us to deliver sooner, which effectively ultimately reduces the cost of the program. And that ties into the next one as well. By delivering sooner, yourselves and consumers can reap the benefits of half-hourly settlement. And also, I think by being a design-led program and driving delivery through the design, the program and the participants have a greater say perhaps in what the design actually looks like. So that increases the accuracy. We can align it closer to ways of working, and we have more control over the solution and ultimately the delivery of the benefits in the target operating model. I think the key thing just on that is to emphasize that with the delivery of the design, the way that we've set this up is that you as program participants should then effectively have everything that you need to be able to begin do your initial impact assessments, to understand what the impacts of design means on your organization, to then start to develop your sourcing strategy, and ultimately the high level design that you will need to do to be able to understand how this is delivered. So M5 should and the delivery of M5 at the end of July should kind of give you all of that, and that's what we're working towards achieving. I'll jump on then, just so I guess a bit of a hello from the whole PMO as well as part of this. You've heard from me, my colleagues, as I mentioned, Daniel and Noah and Fraser are on this call, but there are a few others who are on here too. So Joe, you may hear from in the future. He's leading our planning activity, so all of the replan exercises that we're just kicking off, he's going to be driving that forward. So he's going to be very busy in the next few months. Alex on here, he leads all of our change management and change control processes, and Francesca as well, who's not with us, but she is focusing on kind of benefits, KPIs, tracking, and also the finances. So just a real view of the team. I suppose the people you may have come across the most on this slide are probably Martin, Fraser, and Miles, who are kind of governance and secretariat functions, so supporting PSG, DAG, TMAG, CCAG, and then the level 4 working groups underneath them. And this slide again, I'm sure you'll all be familiar with the scope of the PMO or of a PMO, but just outlines that scope and what we cover. So more of a one for the future. If you have any questions or any concerns or queries or feedback on any of these items that fall within our sphere, we'd love to hear them, we'd love to incorporate them, and we'd love to talk about it further. And like you said, equally, if you want a bit of clarity on how things work, feel free to reach out to us. The email's pmo@mhhsprogramme.co.uk. So feel free to just drop a query in there, and we can get back to you. Brilliant. So what I will do now is, rather than jumping into all of those elements and probably covering them at a very light level, we figured let's dive into one of them and show where we're trying to really add some differential change, and it's perhaps one that will impact you all on the call the most in I guess in the next coming months. So RAID management. And so Danielle and Noah are going to talk to you a little bit about the process, what we've done so far, and then Noah's going to give us a bit of a tour of the digital PMO tool that we're using to kind of manage that. So I'll stop rambling because I've massively overshot my time, and I'm going to hand over to Danielle, I think, in the first instance.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lewis. And good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to see so many people on the call. During this segment, what Noah and I really want to do is demonstrate how we're taking a typical Excel-based text-heavy process, and by applying some of the tools and techniques we have access to and the industry best practices, really transforming that into a lot more of an engaging and interactive process. Hopefully what that will allow us to do is change the perception of RAID and how it is managed, from RAID being a very mundane task and something which we tend to chuck to the bottom of our to-do list, to it being the forefront of the program, where RAID is being mentioned in discussions and taken into consideration when we're making key decisions, and where we're, as a team, and as a program, we've been a lot more proactive rather than being reactive when it comes to RAID management. So before doing so, I'd just like to take you on a quick journey on what we've been doing so far. The timeline that you're seeing on your screen, December to April, is essentially for us the time where we've really focused on mobilizing the RAID management space, and building a strong foundation for implementing a robust and effective RAID management process for the program. I promise you we haven't abandoned the RAID since April. It is very much a live and growing process of the program, but I thought I'd just focus on this 5-month period and what we had been doing there. So essentially we started off in December, where we had inherited 2 RAID logs. One was the Elexon RAID log and one was LDP RAID log, and that was our starting point. And over the course of this timeline, I've pinpointed some of the key outputs of our work over that 5-month period. If we focus on this bottom half of that timeline, the purple pinpoints, the dark purple pinpoints, essentially highlight the development of the governance processes that we have in place. Initially, during the early stages, that started off by holding and facilitating several deep dives to really understand what we have access to and what we're playing with. Over the coming weeks and months, we started introducing various other governance forums. So forums and opportunities for us to come together as a group, and also on a one-to-one basis, and that's something that we did as the months went on. The pinpoints in green essentially highlights the development of the tools and templates. So we started off by defining what the RAID management approach should be for the program, and developing a very comprehensive 50+ page document which essentially outlines the entire process, from the roles and responsibilities to the governance, to the structure of the RAID and all the inputs that are required for it. We also started designing and developing RAID log. Alongside that, we began designing and developing some of the dashboards that we have, and some of as part of the DPMO tool, which Noah will be taking us through later on in this call, and also the creation of the RAID log input form. In parallel to all of this, and the top half of the timelines essentially highlights the development of the content. So by the end of December, we had a total of 99 RAID items captured. And over the coming months, we started actively managing them RAID items. So as a team, we came together, we were continually reviewing the items, adding in items and closing items. So month on month, that grew and it continued to grow. And by the end of April, we had a total of 196 open RAID items. So that was across all the registers, so across risks, issues, assumptions, and dependencies. As we speak, that's grown significantly, so we're probably looking at close to about 250 open items. So that's what we've been doing over the last few months or so. If we can quickly move on to the next slide, please. Perfect. So just in terms of how to raise RAID items and what we're doing with the RAID items now that we have the processes, the approach defined and developed. Essentially, we understand that taking into consideration the size and the complexity of this program and just the number of people involved in this program, we understand that it's important to control the information and inputs to the RAID log. And hence why we've developed a RAID log input form. Essentially what this is a Microsoft form which can be accessed both via the desktop and mobile. And essentially for us, this will be the single point of entry for participants to raise, update, and or close RAID items into the centralized log. So in this form, you will be able to request to raise a risk assumption, issue, or dependency. You can also request to update an existing item and also request for closure of an item. Essentially, behind all this, we have a triage process for us to ensure that we maintain a high quality document, and we continue to do that as the program goes along. We have a whole process where we verify and validate the requests that come into us. So as a RAID manager, I will go in and I'll assess and review the requests that come in with the team, and we will also ensure that we communicate the outcome of all the requests to the originator. Essentially, this is a live form, and we have been using it. So participants have been able to raise requests for inputs into the RAID log. This is something which will be embedded into the portal, but until the portal goes live, it can be accessed. So if you would like to request an item to be added to the register, please do reach out to the PMO mailbox, and the details will be provided at the end of this slide. And essentially, we'll be able to share this link out to you, and you could definitely add your inputs into the register. So we have the opportunity to import the items, but what do we actually do with the items? And for us, we understand that it's important for us as a program to regularly have the opportunities for RAID to be discussed. And hence why internally we've set up various forums at various levels with various people within the program. And essentially they are opportunities for us to come together as a group and discuss RAID and ensure that we're on top of the RAID and everyone is aligned and aware of what the focus areas and concerns are at the moment. We have various forums. The first being Forum 1, essentially these are workstream RAID reviews where the workstreams are encouraged to include RAID as part of their weekly agendas in their team meetings. I also hold individual touchpoint sessions with workstream leads, leadership, as well as anyone that has significant amount of RAID items within the RAID log. Essentially, that allows us to keep on top of RAID on a regular basis. We have Forum 2, which essentially is a RAID review, where the LDP come together, the LDP workstream leads, as well as leadership. Essentially, this gives the opportunity for workstream leads to really discuss and enhance, to really discuss some of their focus areas and highlight any support or inputs required. We also have a third forum, which is Forum 3, which tends to be held on a monthly basis, where it is with the SRO and LDP leadership. Essentially, we then focus on the strategic items and anything that has been escalated from the below forums, and look at anything and discuss anything which may need to be escalated higher, whether that's to the program steering group or Ofgem. That's our internal governance. In terms of our external governance, we feed into some of the governance forums through RAID dashboards and deep dives. And that's something that we feel like we're going to do a lot more going forward. So we'll have a presence and we'll be inputting a lot more in some of these forums with the content that we have. So we have the content and we also have the tools and tools in place for us to do so more and more. I will now I'll pass it on to Noah, who will essentially show us how we're bringing a lot of this to life and what we're using in these forums. So Noah, over to you.
Thanks, Danielle. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Perfect, thank you very much. So reporting on RAID. As we've already touched on, RAID is very key in kind of driving successful delivery of programs. Our programme is no different. RAID reporting is a big enabler for delivery, and we aim to kind of make this as engaging and interactive as possible, and we're using the DPMO to do that. The reason being, if there's limited visibility on RAID items and it's difficult to digest for people, engagement is never normally that high. Items don't necessarily get the attention they require, and that can make everyone's jobs more difficult across the programme. So utilising DPMO, we're trying to overcome those issues that you can sometimes get with RAID. And so yeah, we're utilising DPMO. We've provided a set of interactive dashboards that are very customisable and quite easy to tailor. And as Daniel's touched on, we've got a variety of forums for tailoring the content for those forums, whether it's kind of a high-level strategic view or drilling down into the specific detail. The 4 kind of key benefits you can see are insights and analytics. So taking something that's very traditionally text or very heavy in an Excel spreadsheet and getting it into something more meaningful, more tangible, more visually appealing. Very interactive, making it a more engaging process and approach to RAID governance, reporting and decision making, so tailoring the content quite quickly and easily for the different forums and the various reports that we need to do. And then visibility, giving more people access to it, making it easy to digest as well. I'm conscious of time, but I'm going to just walk you through one example of one of the dashboards that we're using in our RAID forums at the minute. So Kev, I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully it should transition nice and smoothly. Can someone just let me know?
Yeah, we're good to go now.
Brilliant, thanks Kev. So in front of you is a risks and issues management dashboard, which we use in our fortnightly RAID reviews. Starting with kind of the left-hand side, you've got some filters which can be used to customize the view. So at the minute we're showing risks and issues, but someone might want to come in and just look at risks, and you can see that the numbers along the top have changed, as well as the numbers in the visuals. You've then got a number of other filters that you might want to filter on. So score category, I want to look at just the critical and high items. Again, all the visuals adapt to that, and we've got a nice view, and then we can actually get into the detail that we want to look at. Starting kind of from the left-hand side, we've got your risks and issues by milestone. So if we want to focus in on milestone 9, have a look at what these 2 critical items are, we can click on that, and the views again change. We can see the teams responsible, how they associated, the graph in the middle, which shows kind of longevity, so how long the risk's been open for, and then the actual detail is documented in this table down the bottom, which we can open out, expand, and have a look through, look at the owners, look at the descriptions, that kind of information. And all of the stuff we're displaying can be changed. It's very much an iterative process. We've been updating these as we've gone along on the journey. But and I appreciate this is a whistle-stop tour. If there's anything people want to look at more specifically, please get in contact with the PMO team. We have to talk through it more. But this is something, yeah, once the portal is up and running in Q3, you'll be able to get access to and start looking into yourselves. I'm going to pass back to Kev on the slides, and I think Fraser's going to take you through some of the governance within the PMO.
Yes, thank you very much, Noah. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thanks for joining us, of course. So I'm Fraser Matheson. I'm one of the governance and secretariat leads within the PMO. And what we do is we look after the governance meetings that fall under the half-hourly settlement programme. Now, these meetings are a key interface between industry and the programme. They're a vital mechanism for obtaining the input of industry experts and for making programme decisions. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the governance meetings, their structure, and the different levels of governance that exist within the programme, and also the high-level flow of information between these groups. So as you'll see on the screen here, the following diagram provides an overview of the governance structure within the programme. And as you can see, it's split into different levels. Now, the different levels and the functions and inputs and outputs at each level differ in their purpose, and I'm going to outline that a little bit further for you now. So at the top of the pile, as you'll see there, and as Lewis mentioned earlier, we have Ofgem as the sponsor of the programme. Now, of course, they're the ultimate decision maker within the programme governance structure. Below Ofgem at the level 2, we have the programme steering group, who are the main decision and oversight body for the programme. At level 3, we have the programme advisory groups. Now, these groups are the ones that are responsible for making decisions within each of their distinct programme work streams. You can see that these work streams consist of things like design, testing, and other things like governance and engagement. Now, The level 2 and 3 meeting groups have the power to make decisions on programme matters within their respective areas of purview. And as such, these meetings are constituency-based meetings, which means that we have elected industry representatives representing different classes of market participants. So, for example, suppliers or distributors, systems providers, and others. And the constituency model seeks to ensure that the full range of industry views are represented. Now, each of you on the call here today will likely have a constituency rep with whom you can engage and who you can provide views to when it comes to decisions being made at the programme level. If you don't currently know who your constituency rep is, please do feel free to get in touch, and we'll be more than happy to let you know and provide you with contact details. And you can reach us at pmo@mhhsprogramme.co.uk. Now, the decision making at the level 2 and 3 groups is by consensus where possible. But one of the key differences with the MHHS programme when compared to other previous large scale industry transformation programmes, such as faster switching or smart implementation, is that the SRO, the programme senior responsible owner, has the power to make decisions where there isn't consensus within these decision groups. All this is detailed in our programme governance framework, so there's quite a lot of detail in there. If you're interested in taking a closer look at that, again, please do get in touch. We'll be happy to point you to where that is. Now, moving on to look at the level 4 meeting groups here, you'll see we've got quite a few of those. Now, these are the working groups, and these are groups that are open to anyone and everyone. And this is where we seek to obtain industry expertise and the technical input required to help shape the technical and detailed architecture of half-hourly settlement. Now, anyone can attend these groups. Again, if you're interested in getting involved in any of these groups or receiving the meeting papers for them, please do get in touch with the PMO mailbox. We'll be more than happy to add you to the distribution lists. The level 4 groups themselves discuss specific matters, and in that respect, they're all about the doing on the programme. And so they carry out the work of ensuring that the details of design, the details of testing, and the mechanisms for ensuring that we interface correctly with things like industry codes and other governance frameworks are carried out or discussed, reviewed, and crafted in the right way. So really, to kind of sum that up in a nutshell, the level 2 and 3 programme groups are all about making decisions and about reviewing the work, the outputs of the level 4 working groups. So, for example, when we have testing strategies or design documentation that's coming out from the level 4 groups, where that's being created with the expert input of industry reps, that then feeds up to the level 3 and the level 2 groups, where decisions are made on the approval of those types of documents or other outputs. Now, as with all industry governance structures, it's very, very important that we have the right people in the right places, in the right rooms, to ensure that we not only have the necessary expert input, but that we have competent people who are able to represent the full range of views from amongst industry participants. And so when we talk about the kind of the outputs and inputs of each of these different groups, really in a nutshell, level 4 is where we're looking for expertise and technical input. That group reviews and creates, does the work. They then output that work through to the level 3 groups, who then are there to make the decisions on approval of those types of things. So there's lots of different places that you as an industry participant can have your views heard, and you can get involved in the level 4 groups to help shape the aspects of the programme, or you can indeed engage with your constituency reps at the level 2 and 3 governance levels to make sure that your views are represented when it comes to decision making. So that's a real whistle-stop tour of the governance and decision-making flow of information within the programme. Of course, there's a lot of other detail beneath it, but if you would like to get further information on this, please do get in touch. If you're looking to join one of the groups, receive the meeting papers, or to engage with your constituency rep, we'll be more than happy to put you in contact with the right people or add you to the right distribution lists. So just a reminder, please do get in touch with pmo@mhhsprogramme.co.uk if you're interested in further information on the governance structure here. That's everything from me, so thank you for listening. Obviously happy to take any questions through Slido when we get to the right juncture, and I'm going to hand over now to our next presenter.
Thanks, Fraser. Hi folks, my name is Warren Fulton, and I'll briefly take you through the business separation solution. Thanks. Next slide. So look, I'm not going to read every line. I'll kind of give you some headlines, and obviously you can kind of read through the detail as I talk you through that. So a bit of background. During the MHHS consultation, there were a few concerns raised about the potential conflict of interest of Elexon acting as the IM as well as a participant. Ofgem then set certain obligations on Elexon within the BSC and the governance framework, talking to certain criteria which were specifically focused on physical separation of the program from Elexon, organisational separation and cultural separation. And I will talk to a few of those points further in the slide. Elexon and Ofgem developed and agreed a business separation plan, which has been implemented. The board is accountable to ensure that that is implemented and maintained. And obviously, it's ultimately the responsibility of every person within the program, whether they work for Elexon or on the program, to ensure that they mitigate this conflict of interest risk. And then ultimately, the RPA will be assuring that the separation plan has been implemented, is being managed, and that the conflict of interest risk is being managed as well. And they'll obviously report to PSG, etc. Thank you. Okay, physical separation, what does that mean? In essence, the program needs to have its own brand. It's obviously its own IT systems, own email addresses, needs to be in its own office. So it has the program is still based within the Elexon office, but they're in an enclosed office that only they can use and access. As I hope you know, the program has its own website, and all data is stored separately from Elexon. So Elexon cannot access program data. That's obviously managed by the LDP and is in a different tenant. So that is how we've implemented separation from a data perspective. Next slide. Organizational separation. So I'll take 3 slides to talk you through this. So in essence, the board is accountable, not the Elexon exec, because obviously that's where conflict could reside. So ultimately it's the board. They consist of non-executive directors, so none of them are a part of the operational part of the business, except for the CEO. The board has certain oversight responsibilities. In essence, there's 4 key responsibilities, which I will talk to. The board has delegated these to Angela. Angela is not a part of Helix. She's not a part of the operational side of the business, and she needs to oversee these 4 responsibilities. And that's how the board is managing the operational management of their responsibilities. Thank you. Okay, what are the 4 responsibilities? In essence, the board needs to ensure that the program has the right resources, the right service providers, the right facilities, like buildings, IT, etc., so that the program can operate effectively and efficiently. They need to obviously ensure that the conflict of interest risk is being managed. They also need to ensure that the people on the program and the service providers on the program are performing. But the key points to point out is this is not program delivery. They aren't allowed to get involved in that, but they must ensure that the program has got the right resources and that those resources are performing appropriately. And then finally, because all the money flows through Elexon, they need to ensure there are the correct accounting controls, the right finance controls, and that the program is being run economically and efficiently. Thank you. In terms of information and decisions, so the business separation plan, which is on the MHHS website, gives details of what information the board and Angela have access to and what they don't have access to. So they're allowed to have access to information that talks to those 4 responsibilities that I've mentioned. And obviously there's transparency with what they access. Then obviously need to share that with the RPA so the RPA can see that. What they can't access is pretty much, besides those 4 responsibilities, it's information that they aren't allowed to access information that other participants don't have access to. I hope I've said that correct, but I think you get the gist. And obviously they can't partake in forums that other participants don't have access to either. Thank you. And just a summary, so I have touched on this already. The executive committee, the Helix program, and the rest of Elexon are excluded from these 4 responsibilities. and access to the information associated with that. Obviously, a key obligation is that the program and the SRO must treat Elexon no better and no worse than any other participant. There are certain support services, I've mentioned a few there, IT, legal, supply chain management, that are supporting the program, and where we have noted where they're supporting the program and what information they can access to undertake that support, and that is shared with the RPA, and obviously their access is limited to their area of expertise. Thank you. The last one was a bit more tricky in terms of cultural separation, and we spent a lot of time with this with Ofgem and various other parties, and ultimately we came down to let's ensure everybody understands the separation obligations, make sure everybody self-manages. But what we agreed not to do was to basically implement a large wall in between the program and Elexon, and ensure, you know, people who've been in the industry for many years, we still want them to engage socially, you know, meet outside of work, you know, in work, etc., etc. It's just don't talk about things that, you know, you should be talking about. That's what we've kind of drummed in. To enable that, there a conflict of interest training, online training program was developed, and it was launched early this year, and so far almost 150 people have been on it. So it's everyone on the program, so the LDP, SRO, and then the Elexon board, the Elexon exec, everyone on Helix project, which is Elexon's, you know, project to implement their changes for MHHS. Everyone who supports the program from Elexon, so HR, IT, etc., have all been through it. We've got a 97% compliance rate, and the 3% is new starters. That gets reported on every week. The training is updated every week for program, you know, for resource turnover, and all of that is shared with the RPA so they can see who's been trained, etc. We also go down and we track for people who've been seconded across to the program, who are their direct reports, to ensure they still don't report back into, you know, Elexon managers. They can only report to program people, that they're only using the program email address, you know, just etc. So we're managing secondment like that. Again, that's shared with the RPA. And then just awareness. So in the Elexon office, there's posters all over just reminding people about the conflict of interest risk and just what our obligations are as individuals as a part of this program. And then there's also an e-booklet that was developed that's been shared to raise awareness and sort of a quick how-to guide to keep people sort of crisp on what the obligations are. I think that should be it. And then a final summary. So as I said, you can access the separation plan on the website. And the RPA have just commenced their fieldwork on the separation, and we expect their findings to be issued to the industry in July with the other work packages they are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. That leaves us nicely with about 20 minutes to spare to talk about questions. And thank you all for your participation. I can see a lot of questions coming in. And a lot of interesting questions. So we'll take the 20 minutes to try and answer as much as we can. If we don't reach, if we can't address all these questions, we will write out in the official Q&A, so you will still have the answers with you. So the first one, I'll pick this up for now. The various working groups are going to generate a huge amount of documentation and its reviews. How are these document and review feedbacks going to be managed? So from our perspective, we're very conscious of the congestion, both at your end and at our end. So as part of our program replan activity, we're trying to smooth it out as much as possible so that we can control that congestion and try and group up things as much as we can so it becomes easier for us to generate and for you to consume. But if there's anything else that you're specifically worried about, please reach out to us on the PMO mailbox and we'll pick it up. Going on to the next question, we've got Lewis, this is one for you. Can the participants be given access to the actual RAID logs, not dashboard?
Yes, so that will be the case. The full RAID log will be built into the DPMO as well. So you'll be able to access the dashboards in line with all of the underlying information that sits behind it. The target for that is for it to be launched with the portal in Q3 of this year. So that's what we're working on at the moment. We have issued extracts of the RAID log out previously, I think, to the PSG and to other forums. So the RAID log can be issued out on request. But in terms of having that kind of anytime available access, it will be through the portal. All the detail will be in there in Q3.
Thank you, Lewis. There's one around the design documentation. This is around the iServer pilot. So I will pick this up. We'll write out to you offline. We're not ignoring it. It's just that we're trying to keep to the topic of this webinar. So we will respond to you on the Q&A responses that will be issued shortly. We've got another one for you, Lewis, actually. The RAID log input form for parties to raise new issues. The question is, we email the issue to the PMO mailbox or mail the mailbox for the form. Can you clarify how we engage?
Yeah, so yes, if you email the PMO with your risk issue assumption dependency, what we can do is we can share the link to the form, which allows you to kind of populate all of the information needed for us to capture it in the RAID log and then push it through into the DPMO tool. Longer term, again, with the launch of the portal, you'll be able to access that link directly. So I appreciate there is a bit of a workaround in place at the moment to be able to access the form, but longer term, that will also be embedded in the portal. So yeah, you'll be able to go into the PMO landing page, through to RAID management. There you'll find kind of access to the dashboards, access to the RAID log, and access to the RAID input form. So you can just kind of enter your information into there, and then that sends it through to us to then be able to capture.
Thank you, Lewis. Warren, the next one's for you. If we are concerned about a conflict of interest, who should we report it to?
That's actually a great point, and we actually, it's funny you mentioned, we are just literally walking through that process with the RPA now. So in the meantime, I would probably suggest reach out to your constituent rep and share the concern with them. We are looking at better ways with the RPA that how we could create the process, whether we follow like a whistleblower process and et cetera. So for now, the safest is go to your rep, and if it's of significance, they can raise it at the relevant working group or even PSG, and that's full transparency.
Thank you, Warren. There is another one around PMO contact and email ID. So we will be sharing this deck, so you will have the contact details there. And as usual, you can absolutely also continue to contact your PPC colleagues. They will reach out to whichever section of the program can best address your queries. So definitely we will be sharing it, so you can see all the contact details at the end of the session. Lewis, there's another question around the RAID log extract, but I think you've already answered it about, can we get a RAID log, the extract of the RAID today and maybe monthly until the portal is ready? So we're already sharing it via PSG, aren't we? But is this a wider question?
Yes, I mean, we can certainly look at how we put something fundamentally in place to the appropriate people. So that's something. Let's take that away and look at how we act upon that. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that we could incorporate until the portal is launched.
And I think there's one around what kind of items can be raised via the RAID log.
Yeah, so this would be any risk assumption issue dependency that you may identify or you're concerned with or aware of that could ultimately have a fundamental impact on the program. So I think it's perhaps considering the cross-cutting nature of the item, if it's perhaps a risk that can be managed or a RAID item that can be managed within your organization, it perhaps doesn't need to belong on the program RAID log. If it's something that you believe could have a detrimental impact on the overarching delivery of the program or on areas of program plan, for example, then that's where we would be looking for expecting you to be able to raise those and we can capture them. So it's really kind of keeping it at that program level.
The final one I think that I've got as a question, I can see, please do, we've got some more time, so if you've got some more questions, please do not hesitate, please do add it in here. The pre-qualification items are running separately, EGP 432. the timings of the changes are being reconsidered in the replan. So replan is not something we're covering here, but we're considering every single aspect of the program is being considered in the replan. So if you haven't signed up for our planning sessions, please do so. There's 2 sessions. I think we had sent out comms within the clock out in Three Lewis. So any replan related queries, that's probably the best forum for you to log your interest and start engaging with us, give your inputs, and we'll pick it up. But what we'll also do is in a detailed Q&A, put all of these details in case you've not had a chance to take a look at it.
Yeah, just to add to that, so we are looking at capturing all external dependencies that could impact the plan and need to be factored into the overarching work plan. And that'll be done. That's being done at the moment and will continue to be done throughout the course of the next few months. So again, if that's something that is worth capturing, that'd be great to get added into the RAID log to make sure that we do have that captured, if not already.
I can see another upvoted, a new comment that's talking about, can I attend the level 2 and level 3 meetings? Could I ask you to write out to the PMO with the details and we can respond and tell you what the eligibility is? I think we've addressed all the questions. If there's nothing else. No?
I think perhaps just on that level 2, level 3 one, typically the level 2 and level 3 governance is set at the constituent rep level. So you would be represented in those meetings by your constituency representative. So it's also worth perhaps reaching out to them and having a discussion with them too.
So that's all we've got from a question perspective. I don't think I've missed anything. I know there have been a couple which are similar, so we will be responding to all of them with the responses that we've just given today. And I'd just like to reiterate, if there's anything else that comes up as questions related to this or anything else, you've absolutely got the PPC team to reach out to. Kevin, can you put the in the slide? The next slide's got. Yes, so you got the PPC team who's at your service to address any kind of queries or concerns or even support that you might need throughout the program. And anything else specifically to this topic, please reach out to Lewis and his team on the PMO address. And just a reminder, if you're not already on the clock, please do sign up. It'll keep you abreast of everything that's happening within the program. And that's all from us. If there's nothing else from all of you, thank you very much for your time and for the active participation today.
Brilliant. Thanks all. It's been a really good session.